That time after I've taken that picture of Hector Peters, I quickly removed the film and I stuck it on my shoe, my sock. And then I loaded another one. While I was still taking, the police arrived and they ordered me to stop, and they confiscated all my camera, exposed all the films. It had not been of that quick thinking of mine to remove the film of Hector Peterson and I stuck it on my socks. I shouldn't have had this picture now.
Omunye wabantu ababalulekile kakhulu emlandweni wenyanga yentsha yaseNingizimu Afrika umthwebuliwe ithombe ongasekho uDokotela Nzima owathwebula isithombe esaduma umhlaba wonke mbukeli sezibhelu zaseSoweto sikamBuyisa Makhubo ethwele umzimba kaHector Peterson esixukwini sabafundi ababebhikisha ngoJune 16, 1976. Lentsha yayikhalaza ngokwethula kwezifundo ngolwimi lwesibhunu ezikoleni zayo. Ohlelweni umbukeli asikhulume Let's Talk namuhla sibuyela emuva entsheni yakulolu suku sibheka futhi neminyaka engamashumi-31 yentando yeningi njengoba intsha eningi namuhla ibhekene nokungalingani okungapheli ukuntuleka kwemisebenzi okuphezulu phakathi kweinkinga eziningi nje mbukeli nokuthi uma kuqhathaniswa nentsha ngo-1976 yini eyanamuhla eyenzayo ukuthonya inqubomgomo kanye nokuqinisekisa ukuthi amazwi nezidingo zabo azigcini nje ngokuzwakala kodwa ziyalandelwa. Asikubingeleleke mbukeli sikwamukela ohlelweni asikhulume Let's Talk. Igama lami ngingubongiwe uMakhumalo waKwaZwane. Khumbula ke mbukela ukuthi ungaba ingxenye lolu hlelo sishayele ucingo sizwe umbono noma umbuzo wakho inombolo zethu u-011-714-0677 noma 0678. Ungabuye futhi usithole kumakhasi ethu okuxhumana ku-X @SABC Izindaba, ku-Facebook ikhasi lethu SABC Izindaba ukuze kube lula qala ngo-#asikhulume #SABC News bese ke ubhala umbuzo noma umbono wakho. Asikhulume. Mbukeli njengoba iNingizimu Afrika ibigubha usuku lwentsha kulempela sonto edlule umphakathi wase-Eldorado Park esifundazweni sase-Gauteng had nothing to celebrate ngokwembiko nokuthiwa abafana abathathu babulewe. Lokhu kuqubule enkulu inkulumo mpikiswano ngentsha yanamuhla nezingqinamba ebhekene nazo. Kwenziwa njani mbukeli? Sizozwa kuyihambeli zethu Thulani Nzima obuya kwi-Dr. Sam Nzima Foundation kanye no-Gershwin van Rooyen obuya kwi-Youth for Change as well as the Uniting Christian Students Association kanye no-Alungile Kamtshe who is the president of the South African Students Congress. Kodwa ngaphambi kwalokho ake sizwe lo mbiko nesiuqoshela umdidiyeli we-Asikhulume uMusa Mkhaliphi.
Ukuze kubekwe uphawu kwinyango yabantu abatsha, inkqubo yethu Asikhulume iye yangena kwizitrato zaseGauteng. Sibuza ulutsha leli ukuba bazintoni ngomzabalazo wango-1976. Sabuza ukuthi bazintoni ngomfanekiso odumileyo kaHector Peterson owabulawa ngamapolisa ngenxa yokulwa ubungqina bokungalingani kwemfundo yebantu education.
It was the turning point of the apartheid regime, because once the rest of the international community saw that picture, that's when trade embargoes, economic sanctions started to be imposed on the country.
We have to fight for our future, nokuthi labantana labesoba nabo, so that they can look at the back and see ukuthi like we fought for them to have a brighter future.
Kodwa ngemizabalazo yabantu abatsha ngo-1976 siyabuza ingaba lo mzabalazo waba yimpumelelo na?
Yes, the 1976 generation was fighting racial segregation, was fighting the Bantu education, because they did not believe that South Africa, or rather the education system in South Africa must only be in Afrikaans. And as time went by, we obviously had a generation of fees must fall. We are now having the 2000s generation. But I would want to say that their struggles did not go in vain.
1976, they were fighting against oppression, they were fighting against the violence, they were fighting against fair education, right? And we've gained fair education, and I feel like we're still fighting, because we're still fighting for the violence, because look at the GPV stats, GPVF, you know, Bo Olerado, But we're there. We know what they did, and we're grateful because we wouldn't be so many graduates in 2025. There wouldn't be so many graduates who are youth if they didn't fight for us for the fair education.
Nangona kukho inkqubela eninzi ephunyeziweyo ekuphuculeni ubomi bolutsha loMzantsi Afrika, kufuneka kwenziwe umsebenzi omninzi ukuqiniseka ikamva elingcono. Lo mbuzo ngokuba ulutsha luka-1976 luyakuthini malunga nolutsha luka-2025.
There's a generation of 1976 people that is still alive and it's complaining about us, you know. And of course, sometimes their cry is valid because we have given ourselves to drugs, we've given ourselves to alcohol abuse, we've given ourselves to crime. So we need guidance as young people, and this guidance will shape us into future and be able to be a generation that can take this country forward.
Kuyindaba ze-SABC ndinguMusa Mkhaliphi.
Mbogeli, let's get into our discussion. Nzima, uzwile abantu abasha bayakhuluma. Thini?
Ngizwile bayakhuluma. Khona okungikhuthazayo mangibalaleli bekhuluma. Ukuqala yilo ukuthi bayakhumbula ukuthi umlando kaJune 16 uqale kanjani kuphi nini, and ukuthi ke iningi labo liyasho ukuthi indlela isaseyinde kuyaphambili. Noma inkinga zisingafani lezi ka 1976 nalezi namhlanje ababhekane nazo. Kuyangikhuthaza lo. Kodwa ke okunye kungihluphayo yilo ngiyeza umfowethu yasho lapha ukuthi hey ngathi bayaduka kancane bazinikele utshwaleni bazinikele kuyidakamizwa kusho yena hayi mina.
Yeah.
So yilokho ke ngithi mhlambe kuyasilahlekela kancane masingazama ke ukuthi sibabuyise endleleni and kubalekile kuthina ukuthi kube yithini sibagayida.
Alungile, uma ubuka i-generation, you know, young people that came post 1976, kukhona abantu abake bathi ngathi yintsha elahlekayo le, abanye bathi no, give them a chance. How do you describe this current youth?
The current youth is more motivated to solve the problems of today. Maybe the correct question that we need to face is whether should there be more bloodbath in South Africa for young people to be heard, you know? Must there be more protests? Must there be more violence?
And how do you answer that?
For young people to be heard? It's conditional. On what condition? If after the 30 years of democracy, there are people who are still not willing, who are in positions of power, who are not willing to listen to the cries of young people, therefore young people need to do what they have to do.
I want to come back to that. Gershon, let me bring you in right on this very point. Do you believe that the cries of young people are being heard in South Africa?
Good evening, and thank you very much for having me. I don't think so, really, absolutely not. And that is a serious concern. When young people begins to disconnect from things that are happening in our society, it's gonna be a big problem, because we as young people are the voice to make a change in our communities and to make a change in South Africa.
Nzima, sibasiza kanjani abantu abasha ngoba naba bayakhala Alungile is actually making a very valid point ethi asizwakali manje kumele size senze njani. Basizwa kanjani abantu abasha in order to be heard?
I think it's very important that we create dialogue, we create platforms, and we use channels and communication mechanisms where we can reach the young people. I think that sometimes we talk to ourselves. We have the tendency of gathering, discussing youth or women issues without women or without the youth themselves. So that is very important. In other countries, you have noticed that where they are talking about youth and women issues, there is a woman leading it, there's a youth person leading it. So I think that's one of the things that we can try and improve on.
And I really want to stay with that, Ngoba. How do you begin to change a mindset yomntu omdala othi hayi angizohlala nengane mina ukuthi ngikwazi ukuthi ngikhulume nayo, because some do take that into government and that mindset becomes a problem for someone like Alungile, for someone like Gershon.
Sesadlula lapho siswami.
Asidlulanga bakhona.
Hayi cha angithathe ukuthi sesadlula kancane okay. Kubalekile ukuthi ngisho lezi zinto ziqala emndenini nasekhaya la ukhulele khona ukuthi bakuphatha kanjani nawe uzizwe uneqhaza lokuthi okay maku discusswa izinto la ekhaya nginombono othathwa serious ilokho kuqala nje kubalekile okunye nje asifundiseni ingane zethu umlando ukuthi nisibona sinjena sila sikhona khona kusetshenziswe bakhona iningi labantu igazi ligobhozile angiyithandi inkulumo enegazi, especially in this era under our current government. We can engage, let us engage and see how we can change this situation without bloodbath. It is not an easy thing.
So when we come back from the break, I want to hear from Alungile and Gershon. Do you agree that this mindset is gone? Have we passed the time when the older people like us are saying we don't need you at the table, we can actually make the decisions? Mbugel sathi shelele idolo nganyaka siyabuya. Mukala sikhumbuza ukuthi ungakwazi ukuthi ushayele ucingo 011-714-0677 noma 0678. Siyatholakala futhi ku SABC Izindaba ku Facebook, kanti ikhasi lethu SABC Izindaba. Asibonge mbukela ukuthi uhlanganyele kanye nathi. Angize kuwena Alungile, uma ucabanga nje and we've listened now to the fact that kuthiwa try and bridge the divide, try and have the youth at the table. Abantu abadala bayanivumela ukuthi nibe setafuleni?
Look, there's no doubt that platforms have been created by the government of today for young people to have their own opinions about this country. But maybe what's important is for us to learn the lessons of the generation of 1976. What is it that they did when the government, when institutions could not listen? The bigger problem we have right now, Sisbong, is that a larger concentration of young people is locked either in townships, villages, but most of them are in institutions of higher learning. The grouping that I represent as SASCO, they are there with less hope for employment after that. Others are struggling, those who are locked in townships, they are struggling to enter institutions of higher learning.
Hold on for a second. Let me take Franz from Limpopo.
Yes.
Franz, good evening.
Okay, man.
Retain kaintate.
Retain. Look, ma'am, here's the problem you want. I'm going to kuzolunga. Look, khona manje bathathe u deputy president ukuthi azokhuluma nanje. Lo muntu ukhona manje ukhona close to 2 million. Apateli rent, apateli amanzi, uphila a soft life. Uzokutshela yini ngoba uzokutshela lento le wena ukhumbula ukuthi uzokutshela iqiniso. Ngoba yena uyazophila soft life.
Okay, papa.
Wena umuntu awusebenzi. And lo muntu lo uzokutshela ukuthi uzocreate umsebenzi. Uzokuthatha la kubheka endleleni akunike 150 uzenza ngale mali.
Franz Limpopo. Gershon, what he is saying is that you look at someone like the Deputy President speaking about the fact that he's going to create employment, but there's a disconnect when you look at where he is and the fact that he's employed and how much he earns, as well as the young people that he is promising these jobs. So believability, he is raising it as a concern. Your take?
Definitely. I definitely think that there is a disconnect between young people and what they are going through and how elders and leaders respond to that. Like your mental health, your unemployment, the identity crisis, your digital pressures. These are the realities. These are the realities that the older generation don't fully grasp. And we need the intergenerational dialogue where policies are shaped with the youth and not just for the youth, and real investments in youth-led spaces. I think the first step is to listen, to listen to the young people.
Dr. Nzima, there's something, in fact, Thulani, pardon me, there's something I want to stay with, and it's around Dr. Nzima and that critical moment when he describes, and it always stays with me, when he describes how he nearly lost the picture because they were coming under attack. Of course, we know what would have happened. Yeah. And I wonder, what would have been that impact if that kind of history was not recorded?
Actually, yesterday, we had the 5th Dr. Nzima Memorial Lecture in Mpumalanga, and these are the points that I was making. I was inviting people to think and imagine if he did not capture this moment, if he didn't hide the film in his sock, if the international community did not see this film, what would have been the trajectory of our struggle, and how long would it have taken? So the answer for me is that it would have taken us a bit of time, because without exposing the atrocities and the brutality of the apartheid system at the time, you wouldn't have had the Organization of African Unity at the time imposing sanctions. The international community wouldn't have imposed sanctions. And you remember that this gave birth to the anti-apartheid movement in London, the picketing that was happening on a daily basis, the anti-apartheid movement. Those are the kind of things that happened as a result of the exposure of the brutality of the system at the time. Otherwise, it would have taken it as, oh, one of those things that have happened, and very much like March 21st. Remember, it was the first one to happen. And what happened? The pictures that were taken at the time, most of them were taken by the police, not by the journalists. And so, life continued.
And Alungile, I want to talk about just after Uthandegile, I want to talk about how much of this history do we document for the future so that we continue to paint a picture of where we are now. Let me take Uthandegile. Uthandegile, sawubona.
Sawubona Sanata Munjani.
Ngiyaphila, ungaqhubeka nje kafushane.
Yebo sithi mina ngifuna ukuphawula la ukuthi ke waba nombuzo wokuthi kungenziwa njani ukuthi intsha manje mhlambe ibuyele esimeni and all that. So mina nginalo mbono lo othi mangeke kubuyele kwi-code of conduct yakudala, like kuchintshwe izinto the way kwenziwa ngakhona. I think intsha manje sinama-rights too much.
Okay.
Amaningi okuthi abazali abafani nasekuqaleni, lokho ukuthi umntwana manje makana 18 angeke umzali akhona ukukhuza.
All right.
Yeah, understand. Siyazenzela.
Ngiyabonga.
Yeah, siyazenzela.
Uthandegile, would you like to respond to her?
Yeah, look, Sisbonge, I think we must not confuse many things. What is it that the generation of 1976 fought for? What is it that the current generation needs to fight for? Because if we go about many things, we might miss the point, and we might even miss the proper concept to deal with the problems as we speak about this intergenerational dialogue that is necessary. No? So the generation of 1976 fought for oppression in the education sense and in the education sphere. Yeah? And because that hampered learners who were receiving that bundled education from accessing institutions of higher learning where you can get skills for you to be employed, you know, where you can learn how to be a better and socially active citizen in a country. The things we're battling with right now is being employed and is being a socially active citizen. The one who takes responsibility about their own community, but who economically contribute to the development of society and to their well-being as well. So that's the current battle we are facing with right now as young people who are locked, most of them, in these institutions of higher learning, with little hope for them to get employment once they get their qualifications.
And especially because when you look at the number of graduates versus imsebenza corner versus the economy that's not growing, there's a lot of things to talk about there. Let's pause for a second. Mbukeli sathe itolo siyabuya khona manje. Mbukeli sesiphethe nje ake sibheke isombululo ngokusheshsha. Baba Nzima, very quickly, for you, what becomes the starting point after what you just heard?
The answer to Alungile's question is that maybe we need to change the educational system. We are producing too many academic graduates that are not fit for purpose to get jobs as quickly as possible. The second thing is that we need to bring back the vocational training so that we are not all congested at universities for degrees that will not necessarily be employed. So we need to produce people that are going to straight away move into organizations, but not necessarily people that are looking for jobs, but people who can create jobs.
Interesting take there. Gershwin, as the Uniting Christian Students as well, which is an association you're part of, what becomes the solutions? In about 30 seconds for you, what becomes the solutions, the easy stuff that can be done now?
So I believe that our young people need tools, tools to help them to drive through this journey of life. Because I come from a community where the only thing we can do is work on a farm or go to work at the mines. And to go to study is not a dream for them, because the community itself, the environment has put this ideology into their minds that the only thing you can do is work on a farm. And we as an organization, we come with the new thing of saying, no, there's something out there.
Yeah.
You need to go. We want to give you the tools to move, to be the change.
And I quite like that. I quite like that. And I hope one day I get to visit and see exactly what you do. Alungile, for you, in about 30 seconds, how do we begin to fix this?
We begin by changing the law that governs institutions of higher learning, which is the Higher Education Act, so that the government program of developing this nation, can be realized directly, We ensure that we have skills programs, as Baba Nzima is saying, that are targeted on equipping young people in institutions of higher learning. And we make it a point that these institutions, especially universities, are not too arrogant to run away from government collaboration in order to develop this nation. Let me thank you all for your time, and I do hope we get to have another round of this conversation. You've both left me with very compelling arguments that I do believe ukuthi abantu abaningi abasha kufanele bazizwe and bezwe ukuthi futhi sibapha maphi amasu ukuthi baye phambili. Mbukele ke sibonge ukuthi uhlanganyele kanye nathi nehambeli zethu Thulani Nzima obuya kwi Dr. Sam Nzima Foundation kanye no Gershwin van Rooyen obuya kwi Youth for Change as well as Uniting Christian Students Association. Kanti futhi sibe no Alungile Kamtshe, who is the president of the South African Students Congress. Uma uphethele ilolu hlelo mbukela sikhumbuza ukuthi liyaphinda kusasa ngehora lesithathu emini ku SABC 1 kanti futhi sikhona na ku SABC Plus kuze kube ngokusala.